optimal over the top. I think any evangelism in which the only way we try to evangelize is through teaching. So this verbal, here's this anachronism. Like, it's so true. Like so much of how we grow as Christians is catching, it's caught, it's seeing it in others, experiencing it ourselves. You know?
Yeah, it just highlights that. I mean, if that is the case, where it's 3/4 taught and 1/4, I mean 3/4 caught and 1/4 taught, is that the caught part for me just highlights the unity within right up from leadership and within the community that is going to be, you know, on the receiving end of catching, right? So the strength of that, of, you know, catching a large net of fish, you know, requires strong people to pull it in, right? Know what to do with it, how to keep it fresh. There's a whole system behind that net of catchment of fish that actually gets the fish on someone's plate fresh and nice and tasty, right? So in terms of the unity of the order within which is, I think, for me, this highlights the importance of what you do with the catch, like how not just what you do with it, but how it presents itself back again, right? So the importance of unity within the body of Christ, the importance of that it can't be displayed until it is being convinced within them that it is felt and exists and encouraged and promoted within the body itself. And I think that the catchment is reflected in the strength and unity of the body of Christ, and only that. I don't think there's effort at all. Yeah, that's what it shows.
I used to struggle with Galatians 6:10, where Paul says, "As we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith." I thought, why should that favoritism towards other Christians? I think what it's getting at is, like, if we didn't care about loving each other, like if you were 614 didn't care about loving each other, and you just spent all your time trying to love your neighbors in the downtown east side, you may say, see how they're trying to love their neighbors, but they don't really love themselves very well. But as we, as people who are trying to follow Jesus, seek to model and live out this love, doing good to those who are in the household of faith. And it's not exclusive, but we welcome people into that, and they can experience it. It's fruitful. And so the last point, I'm not going to write it on the board because there's some pretty long words and the marker is dying. But the fourth thing that I think Patrick can teach us is this. As we go about a community-based approach to evangelism, we need to move from being compartmentalized to having an integral understanding of ministry and integrated. So in other words, instead of it being compartmentalized, like here's evangelism, here's us doing justice over here, like we began to see it's integrated. We talk about often with our interns, too many people sadly define ministry way too narrowly. You need to expand this idea of ministry so that it incorporates all of life. So whether we're gardening, like we're gardening for Jesus and we're welcoming people into it. We've actually seen someone come to accept Christ. He just wanted to garden with us, you know, like, so we're living life. And I've found this to, again, be the most effective way to evangelize. Now, when I first joined Servants, I was very compartmentalized. It was like, here's evangelism, here's issues of justice. Both are important, both stem from the love of God, but they're separated, you know, kind of like two trunks coming from a life rooted in the love of God. But one day I was in Cambodia, living in a slum there for a couple months with a family, 8 months with a family. And the irony of the situation was Craig had put together a workshop where a guy named Viv Gregg, who had founded our missions group, came and he gave a week-long seminar to pastors who had churches in slums about church planting in slums. And so it was at the end of one of those sessions that I was walking out, and it was hosted in a slum, so we're walking past some shacks through the main kind of walkway in the slum. And I was talking with Craig, and I said, Craig, I don't know if we have enough of a focus on church planting and evangelism in Servants. Kind of a little ironic since we just came from agreeing and disagreeing and talking with him, debating, and all of a sudden this Cambodian teenager comes up out of the blue, out of nowhere, and he says, I heard about you Westerners that have been living in this slum, and I came down to watch it, and I'm just blown away by what would cause you guys to live here. And so I asked one of your neighbors, and they said, it's the love of Jesus. I want to follow this Jesus. Can you tell me who he is? And Craig said, we'll talk more about whether we evangelize him out later. And he goes and he leads this Cambodian teenager to Christ. So I think it was God, teaching me a lesson. And this is what Patrick found too. I mentioned that Patrick was the first person to speak out against slavery. And slavery was abolished in all of Ireland. And you could say that has nothing to do with his calling as a pastor, to plant churches and just evangelize, bring people to the faith, But we need to move from being compartmentalized to being integrated. As we see that there's overlap, this is just living life, loving our neighbors, loving God, telling people about the God we love that causes us to live so differently. And as we live these different lives in which we invite people to belong, even if they don't believe, lives are transformed. And this is the most effective way I've ever seen to evangelize or make disciples. So again, just to summarize the things that I think we can learn from Patrick is one, just takes a community, not just individuals. Two, we should be living counterculturally so that people become curious and fascinated. There's events that we're having to explain to them. It doesn't mean we never take the initiative in talking, but it means our ratio should probably be more like Jesus is. Like half the time people are coming out of curiosity and asking us questions. Half the time we're going to them. People should be belonging before they believe. And we need to reintegrate and just live the gospel and proclaim the gospel in what we do. Any questions or thoughts? Or how does this excite you as you think, maybe, wow, well, this is what we are doing in 614. Or maybe we could incorporate this more. Thoughts? I see some energy.
One of my thoughts is the value of proximity. And I think you get to witness this in a lot more intense manner because I know now that you live across the street, and maybe you could agree with this, is that when you live in the same house, and as this is based around a family unit, that it might even be, you could maybe think through this as that maybe family-based approach to evangelism, because that's what families do, is they eat together, they look out for each other's best interests. If your kid was sold into slavery, you do something about that, even that justice component might be. So I think as I observe servants, and certainly Aaron too, there's this pull to, hey, we really want to live even closer because you have more opportunities for that loving interaction and to invite people into family. So I think that's this is more of a comment, I think, is that it's a strength that you guys live in such a close confined space that there's more interaction and more of that shelter that's created.
Our community that we're in is more long-termers join, including some families with kids. And so, first with Laura and I moving out and across the street, but as they come as well, we're now going to be multiple houses trying to live out community. So I don't think you all have to live in the same house to live community, but I think you're right. There's a need for geographical proximity. Like the way we kind of jokingly say is, we want to live close enough that we could walk to each other's house in our pajamas or carrying a big casserole for a potluck or something, I personally think that the church continues for another 500 years if Jesus doesn't return.